Tired of studying for hours and not getting the results you really deserve. You didn't fail an exam, but you didn't excel at the same time. And this is a repetitive pattern. You start to believe that there's something wrong with you. Maybe your memory is bad or you're not that smart. I'm here to tell you that you are completely fine, but you don't know how to study effectively. The problem is with our schooling system. They teach us a lot of interesting stuff, very important, but they miss on the most important skill, which is learn how to learn. And of course, study effectively. Why do I know about this and you should trust me? Well, because I have struggled for years during my medical training with this problem. But luckily, I have made my deep research about this topic and I have discovered a whole new world. There are a lot of techniques you can learn to improve your brain and to know how to learn and study effectively. In this video, I'm gonna tell you about the only 2 books you need to change the way you study and finally get the grades and excel the way you should be excelling. I advise you to watch this video till the end because of course I can list these 2 names of the books and then you can go and read them. But I have many comments about each one, and if you don't want to read the books, I'm gonna give you the brief techniques that they propose and how you can use them only in this video. In that way, you can change your study techniques and strategy and you can tackle your weaknesses very quickly. Let's get started with these books. The first one, and I'm gonna start with the most important one, is this blue book. It's called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. This is an extremely common mistake I used to make. I used to reread the material and I used to highlight the important parts. Well, this is how I saw other students were doing and I thought this is the way to do it. But in this book, they proved that this technique was not efficient at all. I was just wasting my time. They emphasize here that this creates an illusion of mastery. You think yourself that you're familiar with the subject that you are studying, but once you are asked about it, you cannot recall it. In fact, this point hits home for a lot of students. How many times have we just reread the same paragraph over and over again, thinking that, yes, we got this, but then at the exam we fail to recall the details and the information. It's a frustrating experience because you are a hard worker, you are trying to make the job, you're trying to make the effort. But they explain here that this is a passive way of learning. You don't engage your brain deeply enough and to interact with the subject and the information, so they will not stick to the memory for long term. This is why they suggest many other methods that I'm gonna reveal. So one of the most important techniques is retrieval practice. So this technique consists of actively recalling the information without being exposed to it passively. So you're trying to solve questions, for example. You quiz yourself. I know this might sound time-consuming and you're putting yourself in an awkward or uncomfortable feeling because you don't recall everything very quickly. But this is exactly the point, because here you test yourself if you are really familiar with this information or you're not. And this creates meaningful memories that can last even beyond the exam. Example, instead of just reading the notes or the book, close it and try to recall everything that you have just learned. Or even better, try to put questions. Try to solve a question bank about this topic. You can use flashcards, quizzes, or many other things. Even try to teach this material to someone else. If you take this concept alone, this is life-changing for most of the students. And what's very important that in this book, they assure you that this struggle to recall the information during the quiz time is what creates meaningful memories. The second cornerstone from this book, the second technique that they swear by, is spaced repetition. So rather than putting all your study sessions in just a few days or a few hours, which is we call nowadays cramming, the authors of this book, of course, based on studies, they suggest that we spread out these study sessions over time. The idea behind spaced repetition is that our brains retain information better when we revisit it periodically, allowing time for some forgetting to occur in between. So when you relearn information after forgetting it a bit, this reconsolidation strengthens the memory because it sends signal to your brain that you need this information. It's something crucial. Let's say you have 5 hours to study for an exam, just hypothetically. So if you spend 5 hours the night before the exam, or you spread these hours 1 hour every day for 5 days, you're gonna retain much more in the second scenario where you spread the hours. And studies showed that even 20 minutes per day were effective to solidify memories. This is really life-changing. I used to think that it's either I have to cram everything or I have to study a lot of time, or it will be as if I didn't study. And in fact, no, I was wrong, because the important thing is to be exposed to this material many times throughout a period of time. Interleaving. This is extremely new, and in fact, it's a bit counterintuitive. This study technique suggested by this book involves mixing up your study session. So mixing different topics and type of problems in the same study session, rather than focusing on one subject or one problem type for a long time. But I personally, since I'm a bit of a minimalist, I don't like to overcrowd myself with multiple things at the same time. So I choose one big subject for this study session. For example, biology, which is legit. I can still do that, but using this technique, what I should be making is mixing a bit the chapters and the type of problems that I'm solving. So I don't cram for 2 hours straight about cell biology. I alternate between genetics, evolution, and cell biology. In that way, my brain juggles with the material, which is stretching my brain to its limits. I know that. But this is important because, when you're studying, you feel like you're getting comfortable with this topic and you're getting used to it. But then after a week or two, or if you change scenario or you change the environment, you find yourself that you're not that good at it anymore. You're not comfortable with it because your brain is only structured to think about this topic in this same specific situation and the same specific order. But if you start to throw at it different topics under the same umbrella in different timing, your brain is gonna able to think about topics and shift from one to another effectively. Same, for example, if you are studying math. Don't solve problems of the same kind over and over and over again. This might only work in the shorter term, but for the long term, this is not effective. So why does it work? When you switch between topics or problems, your brain is forced to work harder to recall and apply different concepts. This helps you develop a deeper understanding and strengthens your problem-solving skills. Here you should know something. At first, interleaving might sound so confusing and time-consuming. It's gonna be awkward. I experienced this, but after a while, trust me, your brain gonna feel so light. You're gonna feel that your brain is so fast. You're gonna gain sharpness. Now, enough talking about this book. Trust me, if you read it, you're gonna learn a lot of tricks that amaze you. And this book alone is more than enough to make you a better student and score much higher grades. But there's another book that I would like to share with you, which is not under the category of learning or learning how to learn. But this book is also important for the student life and how to organize your time and have the mindset how to achieve better. And this book is, of course, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Can you see it? Yeah, I think you can. Anyway, this book has two important key concepts for learning how to study. The first one is the power of 1% improvements, which are these atomic habits. So the author James Clear introduces this idea of marginal gains, where tiny, small, meaningless improvement over time, they add up to create something big and to make a big change at the end. Of course, the key message here is that you don't have to make drastic changes to see drastic results. You can start small and you can start changing the way and strategies of how you study, and you have to make small efforts daily. I told you before that even 20 minutes per day were more than enough for you to create meaningful memories. And there are studies that show that these at the end are cumulative and gonna make a big change. If you commit to improving your study habits by just 1% every day, whether that means studying for a few minutes longer, organizing your notes a bit better, or cutting out small distractions, by the end of the year, the outcome will be huge. And this concept was very encouraging to me because I saw other brilliant students sometimes and I feel like I will never reach that level. And after reading this book, I gave myself a period of a month. I said, I want to make this 1% effort every day for a month. And trust me, the results were incredible. And I was in fact enjoying this process. I was enjoying this improvement. There's something that I have discovered is that the improvement is exponential. It's not linear. So the more I improve, the more I will improve later on. And these big goals were more attainable. And the second concept of this book is the 4 laws of behavior change. I also found that my problem was not only with how to study, the strategy and study techniques, but also my bad habits. The distractions, the bad habits, and everything, they were keeping me from trying to improve. James Clear in this book was not probably talking about how to study better. He was talking in general, how to make habits or change bad ones. But I applied these concepts focusing only on academically, trying to improve my study time. Briefly, these 4 laws are cue, craving, response, and reward. It's important to have a solid system. Not only know how to study, so yeah, you read the first book, make it stick. Now you have this technique, but you don't have a study schedule. You don't have a system where you are consistent and you know how you are directing your goals. If you want to make it a habit to study, let's say, every day after you have dinner, you need to create clear cues that trigger this behavior. So you have your study material all ready after your dinner. So by the time you finish eating, every time you have dinner, you have some sort of an internal trigger that now it's time to study. What I also experienced that visible cues were very strong in my case. I always had a clear desk and I put on it only the study material that I'm gonna study during this session. So whenever I finish eating, I can start studying even if I'm not in the mood. The more attractive a habit feels, the more likely you are to stick with it. To make studying more appealing, because of course this is gonna help you be more consistent, James Clear suggests to make things more attractive. He says that you can pair this new habit, studying, with something that you like. You pair it with a sensation of joy. In my case, it was a simple one. I used to enjoy my coffee while studying. Other things you can do is to listen to music in the background that you like while studying, or you can study with someone that you like. And at the end of every session, you can always reward yourself. One of the biggest obstacles to make and create a new habit is to make them too difficult. To succeed, James Clear suggests to make them very small. And this is what I did. I didn't go with all these new study techniques that I have learned and put them all together. In fact, I started with the active recall because I was always in the back of my mind resisting to do questions before I have finished all the book or the chapter. But what I have incorporated from this book to the other one is I started putting small changes. For example, I started to put these cue banks or question banks, and I started to practice while I was studying this new chapter. It was in parallel, and trust me, this made a very big difference. Finally, every habit needs to end in a reward. This could be a tangible reward, like treating yourself to something you enjoy, or an internal one, like the satisfaction of crossing a task off your to-do list. The more satisfying a habit feels, the more likely it is to stick. I don't want to make this video any longer, so this was briefly about these 2 books, how they can immensely help you with your study. Personally, I really advise you to go read this book, make it stick. It's a savior, and I hope you enjoy it. See you.